Hi, my name is Dr. Debbie Osborne. I'm an associate professor at the University of South Florida in the counselor education program there, and I head up our career counseling track and our graduate career counseling certificate. I'm pleased to share with you some of my experiences as a new professor in Second Life and trying this on for size this past summer. I did this with the help of a colleague, Wendy, who was at our Lakeland campus. And we both taught career development and thought, well, it'd be interesting to see what both of our experiences together would be. So this was a master's level career course. There were 18 in my class. Prior to meeting face-to-face, I sent them an email saying they needed to log on to Second Life. They needed to get a character. Here's a link to the Center for Counselor Education in Second Life. And you can go there and be safe and try, create your character and so forth. But basically go through getting your character set up, because on the first night of class we were going to meet in Second Life and kind of get our bearings together. Okay, just a backdrop on that. So the first night of class comes, and I had reserved the computer lab. I was told that lab would run Second Life. Guess what? It didn't. The computer, I found out the day of, I kept checking back, oh, we're upgrading it, the day of, that it wouldn't work on those computers. We got transferred to another lab outside of our college, which was under construction or under revision or whatever. It wouldn't work. So fortunately, I had told the students that had laptops to bring their laptops with them. So a few were able to get in because our building was wireless. What were the experiences that I had planned for them to do? Basically, in our regular career class, we meet mostly online, but we do have a few face-to-face meetings. What we do in our chats is that we talk about their career counseling experience, where they find a volunteer and they counsel them or advise them on career issues for 3 sessions. They get feedback from me and from their peers before they go on to the second session. They also record their session and they get feedback on that. And so I said, well, instead of doing this in Illuminate or face-to-face, we're going to do our chat in Second Life. So that was one of the activities. Another activity was for them to create a group project and presentation on a career theorist. So I broke them into small groups. They each had a career theorist, and they had to follow the PowerPoint layout that I had given, which basically included the key parts of that theory. They had to come up with some type of diagram. Couldn't be a hexagon if it was Holland. It couldn't be a pyramid if it was, or the rectangles if it was CIP in the Casavi cycle. Couldn't be a rainbow if it was super. They had to come up with something original. They had to have an activity that you might use in a classroom or with a workshop that people could do. And so they were going to present this in Second Life. And then finally, one person, just out of necessity, for their volunteer career client, had just moved here, didn't know anybody, couldn't find anybody who was able to serve in that role. So Marty's doctoral student volunteered to let her counsel the doctoral student, and that gave us the opportunity to figure out, well, what would that be like, and what are the limitations, how can we record it, and so forth. So we had one student that did that. I wanted to briefly show you, let's get over here. Here we go. What my class looked like. And so there they all are, and you can see, I'm going to turn off the sound. You can see that they didn't take a great advantage of changing their styles, although the one in the right corner did. They all look exactly the same. So you might see some attitudes there of what they think. They're presenting now on their model of CIP in the Casavi cycle. And you can already see that this may not be the best approach. I mean, everybody's sitting around in a circle. They've got their backs to the screen, although in reality we can see the screen because we're sitting there. Having a person sitting there isn't all that useful, except you're able to see each other and move around. So I'm kind of showing some different people there. Okay. We're going to go on to the next one, but we're not going to get into that just yet. So, okay, let me tell you, we did do some surveys pre and post. Pre, we had everybody post. I just got 9 people that wanted to fill it out, so we'll just go with what we've got here. I wanted to find out how much time they spent online, and you'll see that 31% said I spent as little time as possible, which is surprising because 60-some-odd% of these students were age 30 and younger, so I would have thought that they spent a lot more time online. And then they just progress in terms of, I have a Facebook account and I check it every once in a while, to I always have it running in the background, to I'm always doing something online. So you can see the differences there, which can, again, it's a nice little snapshot of what you may have in your classes too, that range of experience and range of preference for using. I thought it'd be interesting to know about what kind of learning style they have. Majority said visual. The nice thing about Second Life is, to me, the potential is that you can engage all types of styles, except maybe intrapersonal, unless if you're by that yourself, but you can get all of Gardner's intelligences there, because you're seeing people visual, you're handling things kinesthetic, you're listening to people as you chat. Interpersonal, that's a huge part of it. It's a social area where you're talking to people. So I wanted to see how that would fall out. How useful do you think it will be about giving you information? Now, they have a pretty good attitude about this. 62%, well, actually 68% said it's going to be useful or very useful. Most of them had no experience at all in Second Life, and they have this positive attitude about how useful they'll think it be. How technically savvy would you rate yourself? Most of them said I'm above average, so I felt pretty comfortable with that too. Then maybe they're going to be able to figure this out. But there is a group that says I'm a neophyte, I just know the basics. That group's going to need a little bit more help, and it's probably going to be a lot more frustrated if they aren't properly oriented. We asked for one word that described how they felt about using Second Life, and if you look at this, compare it with the percentage that said, hey, I think it's going to be a useful activity. Look at the types of words that are on here, and you can see the majority of them, their first word that comes to mind, are more on the negative side of things. Confused, unnecessary, nervous, weird, disturbed. I was a little disturbed at first. Unenthused, unknown, concerned, uncomfortable, dismayed, anxious. So you've got all of these feelings before you even get into Second Life to try it out. So that tells you, as an instructor, if you're going to use this, you need to be aware that your students may be feeling this, and what can I do to address it early on. This is following the experiences in Second Life where they chatted, and so I asked them, to what degree did you enjoy using Second Life for chatting? And oops, I should have, the n equals 3 is the blue. N equals 5, not at all. The majority of that group said, nope, I didn't like it at all. But you have to understand, I think this is because that's how we used it. We just chatted. Well, if you're going to just chat, use Illuminate. Use what you already have. Second Life has more potential than just for chatting. It can be used that way, but I think there's more potential there. Use it for what it's good for. How easy did you find? Look at this, a perfect third, 3 in each. Extremely difficult, difficult, and easy. So again, that may be what your classroom would look like. This is the learning style. The majority said, no, not really. It didn't engage my learning style at all. A few said somewhat or a great deal. So again, that falls on me because I don't think I used it to its potential in terms of the learning styles. We got the interpersonal, but I don't think we did as much as we could with the other areas. Comparing chat to other venues, the online chat was inferior to face-to-face. That's not surprising. We've got a bunch of counselors that would prefer to be face-to-face. But then we still have a good number that said, just two less, that said, well, it's similar to face-to-face. And comparing to Illuminate, it was also inferior to Illuminate. And again, I think that has to do with how I was using it. Finally, we asked them to talk about their likes and dislikes. Their likes, a couple people said nothing, but then they had some other things to say. They like to be able to see each other. There's my visual people. The scenery, the classroom setup might have been better than a lecture hall. Marty did respond to that immediately. They set us up in a group format. It was nice to be able to hear everybody and to have fun being a character, to present and talk. More experience is going to make it more enjoyable. The center and around it's very beautiful. But the technology pieces get in the way, and I think that's one of the major issues, is it's kind of technologically clunky still to this point. Hopefully they'll make improvements there. And you'll see with the dislikes, these are the majority of dislikes, are all technologically related. Everything, echo, because we didn't know that we needed to wear headphones. Most people didn't. And what would happen is we hear everything going on in their house, and you're hearing everything in mine, and it's rotating back through my speakers and back through yours and back and forth. And so we were always echoing. It took just one time to figure out you need to wear headphones. But technology, depending on what kind of system you have, won't work. My laptop did not work. I had to use a newer laptop to get it to work. And there were people who did not have the technology necessary to make it run. And the emotional side of seeing their friends having a difficult time was also frustrating for them, figuring out the controls. So that's about it in terms of just the class pre and post test. And I just want to share with you in a minute here about when it's time, about my goal, what I've learned, and some goals for the future.